What's going on YouTube? It's DH back again with another video, and today I'm handing out grades for every pick made in the NFL draft. First round today. Tomorrow we're going to be covering day 2, so covering rounds 2 and 3. And then the day after that, I will give you my entire NFL draft grades, and we'll do it in a tier list ranking so you can see who I think had the best NFL draft. But I'll kind of give away some of that here in the round 1 video. But I also want to say thank you guys so much for all the love and support throughout draft season leading up to the NFL draft. And also thank you everybody who joined for night 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft. We had live streams going on both days, and it was great to be able to watch the draft with someone other than myself and have some comments to bounce off of. And also want to say thank you to JT and Jake for joining me. That made it a very fun couple of days. And now we get to a different point of the NFL season. Obviously, I'm going to pivot away a little bit from the draft content. We're still going to do some summer scouting. I'm going to do some redrafts for 2021, 2022, maybe even 2020 and even earlier. And I'm going to do some summer scouting as well. And then I do want to do a reaction to my early 2023 mock and then a way too early 2024 mock. So still some draft things in the work this summer. But with the transition to NFL coverage, I want to throw it to y'all. Let me hear some video ideas you guys might have down below in the comment section. If there's anything you want me to cover, leave that idea down below. And I'm happy to make it something that I prioritize and pump that video out for you. Because if you're recommending it, odds are someone else would like to see it as well. But with all that down, let's go ahead and jump into my pick grade for round 1. We'll start with Bryce Young here. This is an easy A. I won't deliberate too long on this one. This is the pick I would have made. And I think I'm really excited. One, because obviously the Panthers, to me, get the best player in the draft, best quarterback in the class. But, you know, Frank Reich only had 1 year with Andrew Luck. And I'm really hoping that, you know, obviously Bryce Young is built differently than Andrew Luck. But if you can get a guy playing to that level, can be that top 10 quarterback, I'm really excited to see what Frank Reich can get out of a guy like that. So Bryce Young, that's an easy A grade there for me. That takes us then to CJ Stroud. I'll go A- here. Yes, I did have Levis ranked higher, but it's kind of a 2A, 2B situation. And honestly, I think Houston ultimately, you know, a lot of people were questioning in my comments, why would they throw out a smokescreen? And, you know, evidently they did that just to throw off everybody else just a little bit. And, you know, I think he's a great fit in that offense. Really good processor, very accurate in that, you know, Shanahan West Coast offense where throws are going to be open. He's just got to hit it and, you know, just don't pull a Jimmy G and chuck it to a linebacker once a game. I think Stroud can be really, really good. Plus, he can use his legs more at the NFL level, hopefully. And Houston, just like Carolina, it's like these two teams have been in a rebuild. And for Carolina, it's kind of like reshaping the face of their franchise with Bryce Young and taking the talent that's already been there to another level. For Houston, it's like, let's see this rebuild get off the ground under Nick Caserio. And that then takes us into the third pick of the NFL draft, Will Anderson. This was one I did not see coming, but I had a mock, God, probably 3 months or so ago now. It's crazy to think how much time has passed, but where I had Houston move from 12 to 1, take Bryce Young, Will Anderson, and they do something similar-ish here. And they get CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, they move up to 3. So they still gave up a lot of capital, but obviously less than what it would have been to move up to pick 1. Because I am accounting for draft capital lost in this trade, Will Anderson was a top 4 player on my big board. You know, I think a blue chip defender, one of 3 blue chips in this class, in my opinion. It's still, you know, I love the name value, Stroud, Anderson going to that team, but man, giving up a future 1. I know they still have Cleveland's next year, but odds are I think Houston picks ahead of Cleveland in next year's draft. Now, I mean, we'll see. Deshaun Watson can tear his ACL week 1, and we're telling, you know, a different story here. But right now, I would venture to say Houston's probably picking before Cleveland. So for that to be the pick sent to Arizona, we'll talk about the Cardinals here. I think they had a big showing this year's NFL draft. I'll go B- for Will Anderson to Houston. Again, they needed that, you know, face of the defense. They needed that guy who could be year in and year out, double-digit sack guy, also great against the run, and I think they get that with Will Anderson. Also a good like character piece for that side of the ball, giving them a leader. As of right now, I don't know who would be that guy for Houston. And then we get to Anthony Richardson being the pick here at number 4. So I had 4 picks correct in my mock draft, my final mock draft, and you know, not to pat myself on the back, 4 is not a great number, but I also do that the day before, as opposed to people who wait to the last second and, you know, publish it at, you know, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock when it looks like Stroud's going to end up going 2 because of the shift in betting markets. But that's, you know, that's what happens when you have a full-time job and this is something you do on the side. So I did get Richardson right, but it was under different circumstances. But I'm really excited to see what Shane Steichen can do. And I think you looked at what, the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. First year with Hurts as a full-time starter, leaned to his legs and gave him time to grow as a passer. I think that's going to be the same formula here. And Anthony Richardson's already getting a ton of the Josh Allen comps. It could be the same thing. 2 years where it's a little rough, but his rushing ability kind of keeps the team competitive. And then by maybe year 3, we get to see what Anthony Richardson's all about. And if you're a Colts fan, that should be your timeline. I think by late year 2, year 3, you're wanting to see Anthony Richardson really take steps forward to his true potential, which to me is the highest of any quarterback in the class. So love Steichen getting this toolsy, traitsy quarterback, and I'm not mad whatsoever about Anthony Richardson being QB3 off the board. That takes us to Devin Witherspoon. So real quick, I've had now back-to-back drafts where I had the Jets fans 2 years ago saying there's no way we take corner. Then I had Seahawks fans all this draft cycle saying there's no way we take corner. And I never even mocked Devin Witherspoon. So I don't even know what they would say about this guy who's not, 6'3" and has pterodactyl wings for arms. He's just not typically a Seattle guy. So I think this says that, yes, there are traits and there are previous draft data points to look at and analyze and take into play. But sometimes those trends get bucked. And that was certainly the case here. And for Seattle, a team that made the playoffs last year, they get the most NFL-ready corner to pair up with Tyree Wilson. And I think a guy that has the attitude that Pete Carroll is pounding the table for. He's a football player. He's a hard hitter. He's sticky in coverage. And yeah, maybe he's a little undersized, but that's what you got Wilson for on the other side. You can play mismatch based on whoever you're playing that week. So I love this addition. 5 is earlier than I had Witherspoon ever going in a mock. But that being said, I mocked him at 6. So what's 1 pick's difference? And I think this is a playoff team getting a NFL-ready guy and making that secondary that much better. So Richardson, I don't think I gave it a grade, but an A, by the way. And then for Witherspoon here, I'll go A. I like this pick a lot for Seattle. All right, got to remember to hand out grades here. And this is going to be an A for the Arizona Cardinals. Paris Johnson Jr., my number 1 tackle in this year's class. And if you look at this as one move, not Arizona going from 3 to 12, then up to 6. Instead, it's just basically moving from 3 to 6, getting Houston's first rounder next year and Houston's third rounder next year. This has got to be an A for me. And also, I don't know how this tackle situation is going to play out. Josh Jones clearly is a guy that only plays well to me at left tackle. You bring back Kelvin Beachum. You got DJ Humphrey still there. But to me, if it's Josh Jones at left tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. at right tackle long term, I think it's an awesome tackle duo. Trying to keep Kyler Murray upright. Obviously, they're still committed to him. So yeah, love the player. They didn't have to take him at 3, and they get a future first and a future third. You compare the draft that the Cardinals have had this weekend compared to what we saw basically from Steve Keim the last handful of years, other than when Kyler Murray fell into his lap, and it's night and day. If I'm a Cardinals fan, I am stoked about the direction this team is heading after this draft. Now, granted, it's just one offseason. We'll wait and see. We'll talk about the Lions in a little bit, who have had good drafts. And then this one was not necessarily one of those, in my opinion, at least. At least for round 1. But, love what the Cardinals did here. An easy A for me to hand out. All right, next up, Tyree Wilson. This one's interesting because you hear about the foot injury and how big of a factor could that play. Could he miss some time to begin the year? That's all really interesting data that we didn't really hear talked about. But just judging the player, because I don't have the medical sheet in front of me, obviously, I think this is a solid pick. I'll go with a B flat here. The injuries do kind of take it down from a B plus maybe to a B for the Raiders. But I think they get a really good player, and it's kind of funny. The NFL draft kind of had these comps that were spot on based on where the guy went in the team, and Tyree Wilson's NFL Network comp was Chandler Jones. And I think at minimum, this is your Chandler Jones replacement if he doesn't figure it out. And you pair him up with Max Crosby, got a nice 1-2 punch there on the outside, generating some pass rush. Love that. Raiders have also struggled against the run, and I think Tyree Wilson brings value there. And then best case scenario, Chandler Jones gets back on track. Tyree Wilson's healthy. You can move him inside and out. You can kind of do the same thing with Crosby. They've been always pretty good about doing that. And you can have all 3 of those guys on the field, and all of a sudden the Raiders have a really fun pass rush to watch. So, I'll go with a B here. Twitched up athlete. Obviously, the foot injury is a little bit concerning, but I think if you clean up the hand placement for Tyree, there is a lot of potential to mine there for the 5th-year player out of Texas Tech. All right, getting ahead of ourselves here. Not talking Jalen Carter just yet. Instead, Bijan Robinson, and this is probably the first, negative-ish grade I had to give out here. I'll go C-. This is tough. If you look at my big board, he's obviously a top 5 guy, one of those 3 blue chippers. And honestly, if you were to take position value out of the equation for my big board, Bijan's probably the number 2 player in this class, just based off talent, taking away position and everything. And man, if you're a big-time fantasy football player, Dynasty League, easy number 1 overall selection here. And honestly, even if you're just in like a standard league, I think there's going to be a lot of hype for taking Bijan at 1 because he's going to have the volume. He has the receiving upside. He's going to be the lead back there, and they have a great run scheme, and Arthur Smith draws it up. They have a good offensive line, and we're not talking about Matt Bergeron in today's video, but Matt Bergeron only makes that offensive line that much better for Bijan to run behind. So there's a lot to like production-wise. I just don't know how much this moves the needle. And they're also the team that had Tyler Algier run for 1,000 yards, and he was a great 5th-round pick story. And they took Cordero Patterson from wide receiver, made him a really good running back and kind of a mismatch weapon. They kind of feel like they encapsulated why you don't need to take a running back this high. Is Bijan one of the best players in this class? Yes, but I don't know if this adds any wins to the roster, if I'm honest. Like, I still look at holes on the defensive side, and I think they had a missed opportunity. So I like the player. Don't take this as me saying Bijan Robinson is a bad football player. I just think the Falcons added on to an area of strength, and it's an area of strength that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't move the needle all that much. So, yeah, C- there for the Falcons. And then that takes us then to Jalen Carter, the first of 2 first-rounders. And, I mean, spoiler alert, both these picks are going to get A's for me. The Eagles won the first round, in my opinion, them. And then we'll talk about New England. To me, the most, upfront winners of night 1 of the NFL draft. Jalen Carter, you pair him up with Jordan Davis. You already got Nakobe Dean. I mean, they're just rebuilding the 21 Georgia defense, and only get added on to that once we get to pick 30. So, yeah, one great 1-2 punch with Davis and Carter on the inside. The off-the-field stuff, yes, it's there, but, maybe it's nice being able to give them, pieces of familiarity with Davis and Dean and whatnot. And also, I think Philadelphia, I think Sirianni's done a great job. That culture feels like it's a really healthy spot. And this is a good football team with a lot of players that are looking to win Super Bowls. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, Devon Smith. Like, they have a lot of players, I think, that will keep Jalen Carter accountable. So I think that makes him, that much better off the field as well. So to me, the best non-quarterback in this class goes to a team that is looking to replace Javon Hargrave, and I think they've done it. This is another one of those NFL Network comps as we're watching that was really interesting. The comp was Fletcher Cox. And bang, long-term Fletcher Cox replacement as well. So easy A to give out there to Philadelphia. All right, let's move on to Chicago. They moved down and still get, I think, one of the 2 guys they were looking at, Darnell Wright. I think it was going to be Carter or Wright there at 9, but they decided to move back. Philadelphia makes the decision for them. I think Darnell Wright, plug and play, started there at right tackle. Helps getting the extra assets. So I'll say, kind of like with a foot injury, changed it by a half-letter grade for the Raiders. I'll go from B to maybe B+ because you get the extra pick. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. It's like a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, something like that. But still, good process. And again, Philadelphia makes the decision for you. Wright played right tackle the last 2 years at Tennessee. Has the anchor, I think, underrated movement skills. So I don't think he is kind of an odd fit whatsoever in that zone blocking scheme Luke Getsy wants to run. And Tevin Jenkins plays guard. Cody Whitehair plays center. I've been saying this all draft cycle. You get DJ Moore in the trade from 1 to 9. And now by taking Darnell Wright, you have cleaned up that offensive line, at least on paper, assuming everybody stays healthy. And now Justin Fields has a number 1 guy and a good offensive line in front of him. So, yeah, B+. Now Justin Fields, it's put up or shut up time this upcoming season. Titans, Peter Skarronsky. Yeah, this is going to be hard for me. I'll go A-. I was thinking about A, but A-. He just strikes me as a Vrabel guy, and I know I said that a lot in mock drafts just because he doesn't have all the measurables. He just gets the results, and I think Vrabel just looks at that and he's like, yep, I don't care. I want a good football player. And that's exactly what Peter Skarronsky is, without a doubt. So, yeah, and whether it's him or Dillard at left tackle, the other one plays left guard. I'm hoping Dane Brunskill then plays center, which he hasn't done a whole lot of in his career, but he has done it some. And then, not Nate Davis, but Dylan Radunz at right guard. Nicholas Petit-Frere hopefully gets better in year 2, and Radunz needs to get better as well in year 3. But hopefully those young guys step up on the right side, and I'm feeling a lot better about that left side of the offensive line. And yeah, Skarronsky's tape, I mean, he's just so great in pass protection, also great mover. So for that wide zone blocking scheme, I mean, Peter Skarronsky leading the way for Derrick Henry, assuming he is on the roster week 1. It's a tailor-made fit. You couldn't have asked for much better, and he fell into your lap at 11. So, I love what they did in the second round too, so we'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. But yeah, A- there for Peter Skarronsky going to Tennessee. Jamir Gibbs to the Detroit Lions. This is unfortunate, Lions fans, because, again, I'm not saying Jamir Gibbs is a bad football player whatsoever, and I've had mocks where they take Gibbs, but it was at 48. or 55, not 12. And we heard that Gibbs was going to go higher than what we expected, but to me that was pick 18, not 12. Now, you do trade back and you get some extra assets. I do have to take that into the account here. So I'll go D+. I did think about F, to be honest, just because it's like this and plus what they did at pick 18, I think are good football players. And I think guys that can be productive right away. But I think it takes this team from 9-8 to 10-7. And I think there's other players on the board that could have taken them to 11 to 12 win range. So again, Jamir Gibbs is a really good football player, and they moved on from Taylor Swift. They did not trade Taylor Swift. Otherwise, the song would be inbound pretty much immediately. But they traded DeAndre Swift, and Jamir Gibbs is that skill set, maybe even better, at least someone who you feel better about staying healthy, considering what we've already seen from Swift and his track record as a Lion. And then you also just get 4 more years of control versus, Swift, an impending free agent in a year's time. So, I got to go D+. The one biggest positive here is that you trade from 6 to 12, and then you make this pick. But again, I just don't know how much of a needle mover this is for Detroit in the grand scheme of things. And then Green Bay takes Lucas Van Ness. So I know a lot of people wanted this to be, Jackson Smith, the Jigba, Dalton Kincaid. But Gutekunst is going to stick to his MO, and I was saying it's Lucas Van Ness or Nolan Smith and LVN, plus some of the stuff they did later on to ensure that defensive line is just Gutekunst through and through. I do think Van Ness is going to stick on the edge with the idea of what I've seen them do throughout the rest of this draft, but inside-out flexibility and a young guy, too, redshirt sophomore. So this is a moldable piece of clay and someone who already wins with speed to power, and I think he refine the move set and tap into his youth, and hopefully the potential follows suit. I think this makes a lot of sense as a Preston Smith replacement. And I'd like to shed that salary pretty much as soon as I can if I'm a Packers fan. So you draft a future starter, and you don't have to rush him onto the field either. So you get to truly develop one of the younger edge rushers in this class, and he already has one trait he wins with. So here for Green Bay, I like the player. I know some people probably wanted him a little bit later. I'll go with B. I'll go with the B here for Green Bay. Certainly not... JSN would have been flashier. Kincaid would have been flashier and maybe would have enticed me to go a little bit higher. But Van Ness is a Green Bay Packer, and now they have Hercules. So B is not a bad grade whatsoever either, Green Bay Packers fans who want to probably kill me after saying that. But anyways, Broderick Jones then, Pittsburgh trades up and only sacrifices a 4th-round pick, and this was New England just flipping the birds to the Jets, ensuring they would not be able to get the tackle that ideally, we've all been mocking to the Jets and feels like a good fit. And as a Steelers fan, I'm actually excited, and I think Pittsburgh is one of the overall biggest winners of this draft. I don't know the last time I've been this excited about a Steelers draft really in my lifetime. Granted, I'm 25, so I wasn't there in the 70s, when they were just crushing it year in and year out. But this was an awesome draft as a Steelers fan. And Broderick Jones, he's OT4. I like Anton Harrison more, but Broderick Jones and the issues that need to be cleaned up are relatively easy to clean up. You do sacrifice the 4th rounder, so I'll go with a B here, but it's hard to imagine Broderick Jones not being, at least by the end of year 1, better than Dan Moore. And any upgrade Pittsburgh can find at left tackle, that's the glaring weak link on that offensive line. So you take the guy who has the size, the athleticism. I do think he's a good scheme fit there in Pittsburgh. And I've been saying this whole cycle, I like Anton Harrison better, but Broderick Jones is a tackle in the image that Pittsburgh wants that offensive line to look and play like. And he is a guy that fits with, we took Najee Harris 22nd overall 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I think Broderick Jones totally matched their MO, and it only took a 4th rounder to move up and go get their guy. So I'll give Pittsburgh a B for taking Broderick Jones. Then at 15, Will McDonald. So this is a little bit of a kind of a 2-part hard to grade thing because the pick swap with Rodgers, which I'm not going to take into account here because that was a deal made before draft night. And it felt like something that I guess Green Bay was really wanted to have in the deal. And with all the top tackles, I would have been fine with Anton Harrison, but I think consensus board-wise, that's considered a reach. And Anton Harrison was 23 on my big board, too. So, even on my big board, as much as I like him, technically a reach. But Will McDonald, man, that is a Robert Saleh edge rusher who can win with speed and has great bend and the 90th percentile arm length. This is your Carl Lawson replacement in a year's time. And, just like the 49ers, they always have a deep rotation across the defensive line. I think you're going to continue to see that. Joe Douglas likes drafting in the trenches. So this pick made a lot of sense with all the tackles gone. And I think this is a fantastic fit for him. And good for Will McDonald. This is about as early as I could have seen him go. A lot of times in my mocks, I said he would go like as high as 19 to Tampa Bay. But with the 13-15 swap and all the tackles gone, New York makes a lot of sense. And again, I think this is your Carl Lawson replacement. So sucks none of the tackles were there, but I got to go with a solid B here. Maybe B+, you could kind of move me in that direction, but I'll go with the B here for New York, taking Will McDonald. And then we get Emmanuel Forbes, a little bit of a corner run here towards the mid to late portion of the first round. But Forbes, look, he's got a good feel for zone coverage, and he's got the length, and he's got the ball production. A lot of his interceptions are either lucky or he jumps routes on just kind of predictable plays coming his way. And I think the NFL is going to be a lot better of not being as glaringly obvious that a screen's coming, so therefore Forbes jumps the route and takes it back for 6. I think it's going to be a step up, not only in competition, but also in play design. And therefore, his assignment gets that much harder. And I just don't know how you could look at – I know people like Emmanuel Forbes. Trust me, I'm not trying to crap on the player, but I just don't know how you could look at a board with Christian Gonzalez, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter Jr. all on the board still and say – not Forbes. That's what we want. So, I mean, I am going into my rankings there, but hey, these are my grades too. I'm going to have to go with the D- here. It could work out. I'm not saying it's impossible. He does, again, have a lot of instincts for zone coverage, and it's a lot of cover 3 in there in Washington. But yeah, I was not enthused by the selection. If you were watching the draft show, Jake Burns, who was joining me, is a Commanders fan, and he did not like the pick whatsoever either. All right, then on to 17. This is an easy A for me. Christian Gonzalez. They moved back, garner an extra 4th. Now they had 4 4th-rounders going into day 3. And they get my cornerback 1. And really, him versus Witherspoon, it's floor versus ceiling. Do you want the guy that's more productive now, or do you want the guy with the higher ceiling? Because then, depending on what you're looking for, you could totally flip my mind that Witherspoon could have been ahead of Gonzalez. But to me, I like the upside. I like traitsy guys, and Gonzalez is loaded with traits. And I think him going to New England's a great spot because they have that MO of being able to develop these types of guys. And I also think about New England defenses, and they've been skating by with, a good enough unit the last year or two. But, man, you think about the best New England defenses. It's, Ty Law running it all the way back. Or even more recently, it was Darrelle Revis. Then it was Stephon Gilmore there. Then it was J.C. Jackson for a bit. And it's like you give Bill Belichick that number 1 shutdown guy, and everything across the board gets so much better on that defense. Which, I mean, water wet. Nothing really mind-boggling to be said there. But I think this is the guy that could be that player for New England for the next half decade to a decade. So yeah, love this pick, and you get an extra 4th out of it. So yeah, easy A grade for me to give out. Christian Gonzalez going to New England. And then we get to the Detroit Lions taking Jack Campbell. And again, I like the player. I have mocked Campbell to the Lions. I even had them trade back from 18 and give him Campbell at 26 after a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. And at that spot, I feel better about it. And could they get better at linebacker? Sure, absolutely. Like Alex Anzalone, I don't know how great of a player he is, in regards to the position compared to some of the better players, and just look at the league as a whole. And I think though Malcolm Rodriguez kind of proves you can find really good value in really good players later on in the draft to this position. Now, granted, Jack Campbell's the only guy that's like 250 pounds at the linebacker position. So did that cause the reach? Was that the catalyst? I think so. But like I said with Swift, I think, Gibbs. Gibbs and Campbell takes this team from 9-7 or 9-8 to 10-7. It's a wins difference, and I think there were other players on the board here that could have moved the needle more. And how hype we are about the Eagles, draft getting Carter and Nolan Smith. If the Lions didn't move back from 6, they could have had the exact same draft here. And, I think that's a bigger needle mover maybe than a running back and a linebacker. So, again, I like the football player, and they can get better at the position, no doubt. But, they just signed Jamal Williams 2 years ago, and then they turned him into the franchise record holder for touchdowns in a single season. And they draft Malcolm Rodriguez on day 3 and turn him into a really good starter. I don't know if they had to address those positions in round 1. That's all. Anyways, let's move on now and talk about Kalijaun Canty going to Tampa Bay. Yeah, this was a fit that nobody really talked about, but for all the same reasons that it made sense for Canty to fit in Philadelphia, because he's next to Jordan Davis and he'll stay clean, and Davis will eat the blocks and be there for the run game stuff. Tampa Bay's a lot of the same rationale here. I mean, Vita Vea is going to eat space and eat blocks and keep Canty clean. Now I do wonder what they're going to do with Logan Hall, a little bit of a tweener coming out of Houston last year. Do they think they can move him to edge? Because they also signed Greg Gaines this year. So I'm interested to see how that interior rotation plays out, and maybe Canty only plays passing downs. And Tampa Bay saw that, hey, even if he only plays passing downs, 19 is worth it enough. Sorry, now that I think about it, I did not give a grade for Jack Campbell, but I'll give it a D. Yeah, Like the player, didn't like the value. And Canty here, I'll go with a B. I don't hate this pick whatsoever. It's probably on the earlier side of his range of outcomes for Kalijaun Canty, but I do think next to Vita Vea, this could be a really nice interior duo and kind of give him that extra juice. I've been looking for Tampa Bay to find that that person who can get the pass rush back to where it was when they won a Super Bowl, because since then they have not been that same unit in that area. And I think Canty could be the guy that brings that juice and gets him back on track. So I'll go with a B for Canty to Tampa Bay. Jackson Smith and Jigba going to Seattle. This is a fit that I absolutely adore. So this is another A grade here for Seattle. And for a team that builds for the trenches, it was kind of cool to see them attack the perimeter a lot here. But I talked about this in mocks where I had JSN playing the slot and falling to 20 to Seattle. It just makes all the sense in the world. He's the slot wide receiver they don't have, and he's the insurance in the case of a Metcalf or a Lockett injury. And then I think long-term, Metcalf plus JSN, one on the outside, one on the inside. That's an awesome 1-2 punch. So wide receiver 2 for me. And again, him and Johnston, it's kind of the floor-ceiling argument. You could kind of sway me in either direction based on what you're looking for. And for a playoff team, they went with the in the arguments of high ceiling, high floor. They went with the floor guy with Witherspoon, who I also think is going to be a good football player. I'm not saying he is who he is and he can't get better. And then JSN, kind of the same thing, higher floor, but maybe not quite the upside of some of the other wide receivers in this class. This is a playoff team getting better. So, yeah, easy A grade for me to give out to Seattle there. Then we get Quentin Johnston going to the Chargers, and they are just straight up building a basketball team to go head-to-head with the Lakers, I guess. But, yeah, Johnston at almost 6'3", and then, Keenan Allen at 6'3", Mike Williams 6'4". Palmer's not a small guy either. But Johnston brings the long speed this team doesn't have right now. And also, he's the yak guy they don't have with DeAndre Carter being gone. So he fills a couple roles that are missing in that wide receiver room. And then I think this sets up Josh Palmer to be that slot wide receiver of the future in replacement to Keenan Allen. So I also think this is solid value for him. He could have fallen maybe a little bit longer, but 21 not having to move up and take this guy who adds that element they're missing, both long speed but also yak ability. I think it makes for a good grade here. So Quentin Johnston to LA, I'll go B+. You know what? If he's my number one wide receiver and I just gave Seattle an A, sorry, I got to do it. This is an A for the Chargers. I like this pick a ton. Could have been Zay Flowers, who runs 4.41, but that's 4.41 at 5'9" versus Johnston's pro day combine. 40 time wasn't great. The pro day 40, that is. But he also does it at 6'3". So it's a little different with body size parameters taken into account there. But nevertheless, I'll go with an A for the Chargers taking Quentin Johnston. Nice project receiver. And then I'm going to give the Ravens an A too, just because it feels like they've been so hesitant to put receivers around Lamar Jackson. And then in one single day, basically, they sign Lamar Jackson and get him another weapon. And I'm like, here we go. It only took, 5 years? It only took so long for them to kind of come to this conclusion. But I said in mocks where I like Zay Flowers because Rashad Bateman's coming off an injury and OBJ's coming off an injury. No guarantee those guys don't get re-injured this season. And then if all those guys stay healthy, Zay Flowers in the slot, being a better Devin Duvernay is awesome. And now you have 3 wide receivers, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson's running threat, and a run game that's going to prop up any running back to be really productive. This is an offense now that scares me. And Baltimore is now in a position to have as good an offense in a different image and a different play style, but be able to go toe for toe with Cincinnati in the AFC North, which is really, really exciting for anybody who's not a Steelers fan or a Browns fan for that matter. But looking at it as just a football person and what the Ravens did here, I got to go with another A here. I love the wide receiver run, and then we get Jordan Addison. It's also cool because wide receiver 1 and 2 on my board are JSN and Johnston, and then wide receiver 3, and then we get followed by wide receiver 4. So it almost kind of played out like I rank these wide receivers. Addison to the Vikings, I'll go B+. I think this is a solid add. Doesn't have maybe the insane physical attributes that people want or thought he might have. But to me, it kind of harkens back to prime Adam Thielen and how he can just consistently get open and be someone they can rely on being able to move the sticks. And in this case, you kind of get that ability while also just taking the shoulder, kind of giving the load off the shoulders of Justin Jefferson, who can carry a lot of that workload. Like, trust me, Justin Jefferson's top 3 wide receiver. You want to give him 15 plus targets a game. Like, I love that the Vikings did that so much last year. But this is another guy that can take that pressure off, and like that Giants wildcard game, this guy could get open and get you that 4th and 8 first down. Like that. This is the guy that I think can do that more than Thielen at this point in his career. So a route assassin and quick out of his breaks. I just love having him on the other side of Justin Jefferson. If they run 3 receiver sets, Addison can also play in the slot, maybe get some more favorable matchups, and maybe that makes up for where the 4.49 speed isn't all that flashy. But B+ there for Addison going to Minnesota. And then this is going to be an easy A for me. Deontay Banks going to the Giants, a perfect scheme fit, and they move up one spot, but the compensation was negligible, and they just made sure that they got their dude. Can play zone coverages. He did that a little bit at Maryland, but in a Wink Martindale defense, this guy, his man press ability is going to be put on full display, and he's going to be the guy opposite of Adoree Jackson. They are giving Wink Martindale the necessary tools to run that defense, and I'm absolutely here for it. So, yeah, love the Deontay Banks fit, and I also love the value. Getting him at 24, are you kidding me? A lot of times in my mocks, I was like, I wish I could get him to the Giants, but he's off the board because someone else needs a corner. Here he falls pretty much in their lap. They move up one place again, but that's not too bad. That's not bad in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, now him plus Adoree Jackson, that secondary is looking really, really good in New York. So an easy A for me to give out. Probably my favorite pick of the first round, if I'm honest. Then we get to Dalton Kincaid going to Buffalo. I know a lot of Bills fans were a little mixed on this because you already got Dawson Knox, but this whole offseason I've been saying Buffalo needs another pass catcher to take the load off the shoulders of Stephon Diggs. And with the run on wide receivers, I think the argument could be made, and probably one, that Dalton Kincaid is the highest potential of any of the receivers that were left, receiver/tight end. He has the highest pass catching upside of anybody who is a pass catcher left. So therefore, this pick makes a lot of sense. And plus, trust Ken Dorsey to figure out 2 tight end sets. Like, just because you have Dawson Knox doesn't mean Dalton Kincaid can't play. And just because Kincaid's the first round pick doesn't mean Knox isn't going to play. You can create a lot of mismatches against safeties and linebackers alike with these guys. And Dalton Kincaid can play him in the slot if you wanted. And you can create some mismatches against small corners and play him at the X. A little goal line fade action for Kincaid, like the Pats used to do with Gronk and like the Chiefs do with Kelsey. Not to say Kincaid's going to be those guys, but a good OC is going to find those mismatches to take advantage of and exploit. So yeah, I like this pick a ton. I'll go B+. Yeah, maybe there's other positions, but also it's tough for me to block out the other spots I know they take throughout the rest of the draft. So I can easily give this an A, knowing that it kind of worked out in the grand scheme of things, especially with their 2nd round pick. But I'll go B+. Yeah, you have to move up too. That's kind of maybe what keeps it from an A- range, but I'll go B+. Now they have someone who could be that 2nd or 3rd option, or just generally someone who can work the middle of the field, get some easy throws for Josh Allen. It doesn't have to all be Diggs. Davis can work the vertical stuff, and I also hope they get Shakir more involved underneath and over the middle of the field, but you can still let him kind of play his isolated role and let him do a lot of the same stuff he was doing last year, because Kincaid can be that 2nd weapon and that 2nd over the middle of the field type of guy for the Buffalo offense. Monty Smith then to Dallas. Yeah, this was an interesting pick. Doesn't really surprise me. I knew it was in the cards. I'll go with a B. I do think this is a great spot for him to go because the stunts and twists that Dan Quinn utilizes, Monty Smith's athleticism is going to thrive in that. And Dallas has been looking for a guy that can eat up blocks and help stop the run. That's been one area where I think they've been kind of looking to get better. And I think Monty Smith easily brings that to the table. That's the one thing I could count on week in and week out at Michigan, especially this last year where he kind of got even better than where he was in 21. So yeah, I think this fit makes a lot of sense. Maybe a little early for me. And honestly, if they took Keanu Benton, I wouldn't have been mad. I know a lot of other people would have been, but I have Benton ranked higher, so leaning on my board there. But I'll go with the B here. I think this is a solid add. The defense gets better, and especially in the run defense side, it gives them a piece that ultimately they have been missing to this point. So I do think Monty Smith becomes an immediate contributor in Dallas. Then we get Anton Harrison going to Jacksonville, and I mean, I don't have to say this all that much because I've already talked about it. Anton Harrison was my OT3. He was one of my guys in my guys video. I love this. And the day of the NFL draft, we get the announcement of the Cam Robinson suspension, so Harrison could be your filler gap there at left tackle, and there's also no guarantee that Walker Little, hits on the right side of the offensive line. So maybe then you're flipping Anton Harrison over to right tackle. You might be concerned about doing that mid-season, but I just look at how polished he is as a pass protector. I think maybe not right away. There might be some growing pains, but he can learn how to mirror that ability and just flip, the footwork essentially, and just kind of teach himself to write with the other hand, so to speak. But I just love Anton Harrison as a prospect. I think he was underrated, and the Jags moved back twice and still get this guy. So I think he's, a starter at one of those 2 tackle positions long term. And with the trade backs, I got to give this an A for Jacksonville. I love the process, and I love the fit, and I love the player a lot as well. All right, next up, we get the Bengals taking Myles Murphy. This, too, is going to be an A for me. Fantastic process. He's also a power rusher that they don't really have on their roster right now. High-level run defender as well, and they just get a tweaked-up athlete that, because he saw so many double teams at Clemson, and I don't really know how much Clemson was really doing to develop him, I think this guy could be a better pro. And you have Trey Hendrickson becoming a free agent relatively soon. 2 years' time, I think Hubbard hits the market. It might even be in just 1 year. So you're looking at a guy who could step into a starting role relatively quick. But for right now, he gets to kind of be that third fiddle, maybe a guy who plays on early downs because he is a good run defender. And you get this guy with an awesome frame and awesome athletic traits, and at least one calling card when it comes to being a pass rusher, and that's his power. So yeah, to get him at 28 here is just an absolute steal of a pick. 28/29, depending if you're counting the Dolphins forfeited pick. So an easy A for me to give out to Cincinnati. I hate how well most of the AFC North drafted, especially here in the first round. Then we get, except for my Steelers, of course, love that. Saints take Brian Brazee. This was the final of the 4 picks I got right in my mock. This one just made all the sense in the world, especially with Murphy gone. It's like, who's the other guy that has the frame and athleticism that New Orleans likes? You want to get the other Clemson guy? Cool, yeah, we'll take Brian Brazee. But this is also a tailor-made David Onyemata replacement. I actually had Brazee ranked higher than Murphy on my board, but it comes down to what your need is more. And I think since he could have easily gone Brazee, and I would have been fine with the Saints going with Murphy then. So I'm not mad about either order these picks played out. I'll give it an A as well, just to match what I gave Cincinnati there. But can be an immediate starter and a lot of upside to mine. And again, coming from a defense where he saw a lot of double teams, I think once you get more one-on-ones, we're going to see a whole lot of what Brian Brazee can do as a pass rusher. And then we get to pick 30, Nolan Smith. I feel like I'm handing out A's like it's Halloween and it's candy. But yeah, this is an A. To me, there's no reason Nolan Smith should have fell to 30. And his NFL Network comp was Hassan Reddick, which I've also said that a ton this draft cycle, so not necessarily treading on new ground there. But this is just a Philadelphia pick where this guy falls right in their lap. They continue to recreate the Georgia defense. And whenever Hassan Reddick becomes a free agent, cool, you got a replacement. But also, you could play him off ball and do some creative stuff there. And then you could also picture him being maybe a different play style than Brandon Graham, but maybe he takes over for Brandon Graham, or he replaces Derek Barnett in some time, or Josh Sweat. I know he's got the extension too, so Sweat's probably a little bit longer term piece than someone like a Brandon Graham, but you still get my point. This guy could easily become a starter within a couple of years' time, and I think he can contribute right now. You're also getting a high-level run defender, getting a great leader as well, and he falls in your lap at 30. I mean, Howie Roseman, I don't know what he does to the NFL for all these draft picks to kind of fall perfectly into his lap, but it's unbelievable. He must have dirt on like every other GM in the NFL, and he picks out his guys and they don't take him. That's the only theory that I have at this moment. Tinfoil hat off now. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. At 31, they take Felix Anudika-Uzomah. And then, with Will McDonald off the board, I was thinking FAU or B.J. Ojulari. Those are the last couple of guys that I would regularly mock to Kansas City there. Give them that third edge rusher right behind Charles and Menahue and the likes of George Karlaftis, who they took in the first round last year. So a team that's going to be playing ahead a lot and need pass rushers on the field a lot, need a deep rotation. Felix Anudika-Uzomah only furthers the depth of that edge rotation, and he gives them a different play style. Like Menahue and Karlaftis aren't the bendiest guys. I think Felix Anudika-Uzomah is one of the bendier edge rushers in this year's class, and also a guy who can win in a variety of ways. Has a developed moveset, has a little bit of power. He may not be the best at any one thing, other than you could probably put him in the top 5 conversation for bend, but he has a variety of ways to win, which I think is good. And he's a smart pass rusher too, so he knows how to leverage those different abilities to win in a pass rush situation. So like Felix Anudika a good bit. I'll go B+. I would have preferred Will McDonald, but FAU, B.J. Ojulari, I don't mind either one of them here. So I'll go B+ here for Kansas City. But that is going to do it for my first round grades video. Let me know what you guys thought about first round of the NFL draft. What are the big surprises? What do you think about the Lions draft? What do you think about the Eagles fleecing the first round? And then maybe what other trades did you like? What do you think about the Cardinals and how they, kind of started out the Monty Austin fourth era? I'd love to hear anything you have to say about the first round of the NFL draft down below in the comment section. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. Seriously, would help me and the channel out a ton. And subscribe if you're new, looking for more football coverage in your life. But until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.